Welcome to Build. Yes, I'm your host, Matt Forte. We are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. Our last guest for today is an ESPN host, entrepreneur, motivational speaker, philanthropist, and just happens to be one of the most prolific college basketball players in history and was the second pick in the 2002 NBA draft. His YouTube original docuseries, Best Shot, premiered its first episode less than a week ago, has already racked up over 1 million views, and I, for one, am not the slightest bit surprised. The show has some deeply moving moments. The games are crazy exciting. And I don't say this often, but I'm inclined to agree with a lot of the YouTube comments I read. It's, quote, some of the realest shit I've ever seen, end quote. It's a damn good show, guys. Now, here to tell us all about his journey and this show, the great Jay Williams is in the house. How do we feel about that? Huh, audience? Are we excited? Yes. That's how I feel too. Before we bring him out, I believe we have a really quick trailer. So let's go ahead and run that clip.
In these last few months, I've been in 10 different houses.
My father now in my life fallbacks on me. Can everybody grab a ball?
Sports is a way to get kids out of that element.
Y'all play like this, y'all need to play like this.
It's all hard, man, it's all hard. You could beat anybody.
I want this experience to change lives.
Fight.
Oh, it's so good, guys. Make some noise. The great Jay Williams right here.
Thank you, thank you.
Come on.
There it is. Thank you.
There it is. You got it. Jay, congratulations, man. We were talking in the back. I am addicted to this show. It is a wonderful show and an amazing story, and I can only imagine an equally amazing journey. We're going to get into it. I'm excited to talk about it. Just first, how are you doing, man? How's Jay doing?
Jay's doing great. I mean, Jay's a little bit shocked. He just found out that Kevin Love signed for a $120 million deal for 4 years to the Cavs. So I'm still trying to take all this stuff in, but I'm in a great place, man. My wife and I are about to have a child in October, so we're bringing...
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
Applaud for that. That's one of those things.
Good. We're bringing Amelia Brooklyn Rose Williams into this world. Wow. So with the current climate of everything going on, and it just gives me a completely different perspective. And I think this kind of leads into it, that nothing is about me anymore. And I think innately we live selfish lives. Before we have a family, you only think about you, what's in your best interest. And now to have a wife and bring a child into the world, it just lets me know that it's not about me, it's about something bigger than me.
That's, wow, yeah. And that's something you can almost, in watching this show, kind of see those moments and watch the journey for you as well. As much as you're influencing and inspiring these kids, you can sort of see the lessons. I'm just watching and I'm learning stuff watching these kids do what they do every day. Talk about that for a second. As we get into this, let's dive right in, man. What was something you really took away, the big takeaway for you coming out of this experience?
Well, it's something I would ask the crowd too. I mean, after I did this whole thing, I went back to my parents and I said, thank you. Like a deep, sincere thank you. Because I remember when I was a kid, I would go out and I got in fights and stuff, but I had a mom and a dad who were there. And when you start meeting some of these kids, prime example, Quan, right? Shaquan. And I'm like, I'm going to call you Shaquan. I'm not calling you Quan. But there's a scene where Shaquan is staring outside a window. He's in a car, staring out the window. And he's taking you by the projects where he was first born. And he says, I just want to get the hell out of Newark. I want to go to LA. I want to go to Miami. And I asked him later, I'm like, well, do you know New Jersey's called the Garden State? Have you been to other places in New Jersey? And he's like, no, I just want to get the hell out. Right? And then seconds later, after he says he wants to get out, in the car scene again, he's talking about my dad's not in my life. My brother's been in and out of jail. I have other family members that are saying, you have to get us out of this hood, get us a nice house. What kind of pressure is that on a 15-year-old kid? Exactly. A 16-year-old kid? So for him to carry that weight, or another kid like Isaiah who's 17 years old and he lives by himself, he's trying to struggle and he's asking people who are literally documenting him, can I borrow $100? Can I borrow $200? Jay Will, like, what can we do? I'm like, giving him money. Like, I don't care if it's a NCAA violation or not. I'm like, I want to help you out. He's like, I'm trying to pay rent or I'm getting kicked out of my apartment. You're worried about that at 16, 17, and then you're trying to worry about taking a 2-hour, an hour bus ride to get to school or to make practice or to have a full-time job at 16, 17 years old. Yeah. Like, I think the reality of what these kids are going through only gave me the inner strength to say, okay, I need to do a lot more. I need to do more. I thought I was doing something before, but I need to do way more than what I did before.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. A lot of that stuff that you mentioned are things that I wonder about watching, but they don't, obviously, him asking you for rent doesn't make it onto the show or whatnot. But there's these realities you look at. These kids are victims of a much larger, failed system at play here. And it's like when you get there and you see the reality of their circumstances, because it's easy to be like, oh, we know it's harder, we know it's a struggle. But when you're faced with the reality of that struggle and you're watching this 16, 17-year-old going through everything you're going through, how do you maintain the project, the integrity of the story you're trying to tell? How do you not get too involved? How do you resist? You don't. You have to, right? You're a human.
You completely throw yourself into it. And I'll tell you, one of the conversations that didn't make the show, because we had Michael John Warren did such a brilliant job. I mean, we were filming 3 days a week for 3.5 months. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of footage. Yeah. And one of the conversations, you have with the kids when cameras are off or behind closed doors is that you're sitting there saying, well, one of the kids is like, well, come on, man. You're not really black. And I'm like, excuse me? And what do you mean? And he's like, well, you're not you're not really black. I'm like, no, I'm African American. And I talk like this. And me talking like this isn't talking Caucasian. Yeah. That's being educated. And you can talk like this. And just when you go down there, you hang out with your boys on the corner, just because they don't want to talk like that, don't let them demean you and bring you down to their level, because you should strive to be different. You should strive to be better. I don't like school. I don't like math. You want to be a millionaire, though? Let me tell you how your money is applicable to math. So if you're going to be first pick in the draft, how much money are you going to make? How much is your contract inflated by each year? What percentage you have to pay your agent? What tax bracket are you in? These are all reasons why you should pay attention in math classes. So when you're able to break down those kind of stereotypes that we all live through to a certain way, and you say, no, if you want to see it, I'm just like you, and I've been able to do this, and you can do this too. For any kid from that kind of socioeconomic background, I want to empower these kids, and that's what LeBron and Maverick and all these guys that we've combined forces we're trying to do. And we're just trying to make these kids, they're no longer a white noise. They're no longer the people who say, oh, it'll be good to do my little thing and my little acts of community service. We lived it for 3.5, 4 months, and we continue to live it today.
There's a lot I want to unpack there and get into, but let's go with this route first. For you, when you first walked in, was it intimidating walking into their world and walking onto their court and all that? Because you hit them with those drills, and I assume that was the first time you guys all met when you show up to their practice, and you just run them through the gauntlet. And I'm wondering what the strategy was and why you showed up at such a high level when you met them for the first time.
I had no idea what school I was going to. I kind of found out right before I left my home in Brooklyn. I didn't really know too much about Shawn McCray. I had to find a lot of stuff out on the fly where I did my own research.
I could watch a whole show about Shawn's history, man, with the Zoo Crew.
The Zoo Crew and some of the things he's done.
That's wild.
That turned his life around to be in the position he is today.
I thought that was.
That's what I'm saying. It's funny. My face is there, but I'm like, no, this.
Yeah, man.
He's the hero. He's the superstar. Principal Brown.
Yeah.
They are the superstars who are putting this whole thing together. So I knew nothing about him.
Yeah.
And then obviously getting there, obviously I'm a little bit worried because I have a different background. People can look at my background and say, well, how can he relate? Because I also believe that life is full of complexities. And I recognize that the way you make a connection is by sharing your vulnerability with people. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, everybody in this room has gone through some kind of shit in their life, right? So if I can connect mine to yours or mine to yours, all of a sudden we found the common ground. We build the bridge. Yeah. So I automatically come into the game saying, I want to understand who everybody in this room is. So that drill that we did, they're like, oh, this drill is to break me down. I'm like, no, this drill is about your character. Because I can find out a lot of things about your character in 13 minutes. Are you going to be a person that complains? Yeah. Do you quit? Do you whine? Do you put your head down? Even though the pace isn't the same, I see it in your eyes and your mindset that you still want to accomplish the goal. Amazing. I can find out so many things about you. And it was a revealing situation for me to get a really good understanding of the foundation I had with them as individuals. Because I have to understand who they are individually before we can start working on who they are collectively.
And that's the other thing, too, is the individual connection that you form with each of them. That's one of those parts that's deeply moving. You do this thing at one point, and I don't know if it was in that trailer, but it's in one of the other trailers, and you see it in the first couple of minutes of the episode, so I'm not spoiling it. But you write individual letters for every player on the team, and you give them to them, and they're customized letters. They're about that person, and that's a lot. Not just the physical act of writing that many letters, whatever, but like also
A lot of letters.
It's a lot of letters to write. I don't want to discredit that part. Definitely, kudos there. But like the actual putting in the hours to know each one of those individuals, those children, enough to make that letter worth reading, to write something that they can get something out of. That's a lot of work and a lot of commitment. One, did you know going in you were going to do something like that?
No.
And two, did you? Okay, so there's that. And then two, what surprised you about their response when you got it? When you got the letters to them?
Well, the beautiful part about the letters is that after I assessed who they were, you know, I came back home and I was with my wife and we were talking about. I was like, I'm going to write them all letters, and some of the kids, they had 3-page letters. Some of the kids, they had 1-page letters. Yeah. It was my way of telling them that I see you. I see your BS. I see your substance, and I see your potential. And I see where your potential can take you. Either, you know, he makes a great line, OG says, you know, like Quan, like I see Quan's potential, his potential for the streets, right? So being able to decipher whether that's good potential or bad potential. Right. And then being able to say, okay, like I see you, and here's how I think, this is where I think you are, and here's what I think your blueprint needs to be. And then the best part about that, and that's going to drop on Wednesday, this Wednesday, is we developed our team goal, and then we had everybody stand up and tell the world and themselves what their individual goals was. Because I feel like that's very important. Because if I have an understanding of your individual goal, you have an understanding of mine, guess what that makes us towards each other? We're more accountable. Yep. You know? And now if I see you doing something outside of, you know, the court or the classroom that can deter you from your individual goal, now I can hold you accountable by saying, you wrote that here on this piece of paper. Like, that's your goal. And by you doing this, that takes you away from your goal. And that's the beautiful part about what a team is. Yeah. I'm the only child. I didn't have any brothers or sisters. So my brothers on the team were people that held me accountable for me to achieve my dreams. And that's a good responsibility for you to have as a band of brothers. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and it's also an amazing thing for them to have, specifically when they leave that court. For a lot of them, they're getting pressure, unnecessary pressure. They're worrying about rent and things of that nature. They need this. For some people, secondary family. For a lot of them, it's their primary family. This is their family. One of them makes that realization. He goes, this is my family.
I mean, we had one kid on the team, Kareem, who we were having a conversation at Duke, and he was saying, hey, you know, I used to sell drugs and do things, and you know, and the kid's graduating from high school and he's going to go to college. And we were talking about, all right, well, what are the skills you learn from doing that? Like, first off, you're very quick at assessing somebody. Like, is he 5'0"? Like, is he somebody that's trying to snitch on me? What is he doing? Who is he? Right? So that's a skill set that is applicable to you having a job one day that can pay you a lot of money. You can size up people and what their intentions are. All right? Secondly, you're really good at math. You could break down what you're selling, how much you make off that, what's the profit, who you owe your supplier to, all that stuff. Now, that is a life that will lead you to be behind bars. But here are 5 other examples within the business world where you can size up somebody, you can size up a company, you're good at numbers, you can recognize what your investment is. You can make those same skill sets applicable to businesses in life. And by the way, I look like you. I sound like you. You can own your own business. You can be your own CEO. You can make investments. A lot of these kids almost seem like they didn't get a chance before they even got a chance to get started. Right. Because nobody talks to them that way. The only way you know you can own your own business is somebody says, you know, one day you can own your own business, right? You can, or you're learning from people. But when other people that you surround yourself with are hustling or doing things they shouldn't be doing, that's your mindset.
Well, I think it was Quan, correct me if I'm wrong, but the letter, he goes, nobody ever talked to me like this.
That was Isaiah. That's a kid who's 17 living on his own.
Isaiah, thank you. That's Isaiah. And he was like, no one's ever said anything like this to me before. And like, that's a moment where you almost cry. Then there's another moment later, and I'm not spoiling anything, where one of them struggles to remember the word potential. He's like, he sees that, what is it in me? What's that word? It's like, I forget words all the time, but it was just this thing, rather it was meant that way storytelling-wise or not, but they don't hear potential. They don't hear these positive things enough. And you come in and you work with an amazing coach, an amazing principal, and you sort of help these guys amplify this message. And it's beautiful to see what the wheels start spinning in these kids' heads.
Can we take a quick poll?
Let's do it.
So everybody in the room, have you had somebody in your life that told you that you can accomplish something great? If you have, raise your hand. It's probably like, that's 100%.
That's a really lucky room. That is
really lucky room.
Yeah.
So when I speak with a lot of these kids, And I say, you know, one kid's like, Hottie's like, I want to be a veterinarian. I'm like, well, how do you become a vet? How do you become a vet? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, you want to be that, right? Why don't you know what it takes to become a veterinarian? He's like, well, every time I ask people, you know, nobody says I can actually do that. That's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing. That's like, you know, when you watch Barack Obama become president, you know, you're like, oh, like now as a little African-American kid at home, I can do that. I can achieve that,
there it is,
right? So are we speaking things into existence for them? And then not only are we doing that, are we saying, okay, it's great that you want to do that, but now I'm going to surround you with people that hold you accountable. It's our job to do that.
And man, it's so amazing to get to watch you guys do that in this one instance. You know, you talked, I think, very briefly. I know LeBron's an executive producer on this, and where did that? Were you brought into it? Was it an idea you guys all had together, talking one day, messing around, and like, we should do this for real? Like, how did it all start? Like, where was the beginning of all of this?
It was an idea that Spring Hill had, and if you understand, you know, Spring Hill Projects, where they were raised, which is I give them a lot of credit. That's what they named their company after. They're representing that. The rising of that. And one of the things I love about LeBron is that, you know, I've seen this countless times within the professional sports world, is that somebody makes it and they feel the need to leave everybody they were raised with to go make it. LeBron decided to, not only am I going to bring them with me along this journey, but I'm going to help them evolve. I'm going to make sure that they are intellectually stimulated, that they can hold their own on this level. So it goes back when Phil Jackson was like, oh, LeBron and his posse. I'm like, all right, that posse is close to $1 billion posse. Are they really a posse?
Yeah.
Or are they a business? So when he empowers people like Rich Paul to own, pretty much corner the market for big-time NBA players to represent them. When you have Maverick Carter, who is the leader of Spring Hill Entertainment, and they're running it, Jamal Henderson, who is a brilliant mind behind a lot of this stuff nobody talks about. Like, he's empowering those people, and they've risen to the occasion, and they've exceeded expectations. So when their initiative is, hey, how do we bring this back to other kids that look like us who maybe didn't get that opportunity to be LeBron James,
right.
How do we surround them with the right pieces? And that's his way of giving back. And it's like, not just giving back with, hey, we're going to give you money, but we're going to give you our intellectual property. Yeah. We're going to give you our time and our commitment. That's giving back.
Well, that was the other thing, too, is that, you know, arguably one of the greatest players ever, biggest athlete in the world right now, he pops up on the show to, like, gives time for this project, for these kids. He gives time. And I was like, it's really exciting to see him, one. And two, I was surprised to see him pop up a couple of times in there, and the impact it has. You see their faces when they get the video that you make for them. And it just changes. It's another one of those moments where you see the wheels spin of like, yo, if like Jay and LeBron are talking about me, like,
you're important.
I'm important. Yeah.
And the beautiful thing for all these kids, you know, when we did that, I said, I love that LeBron James, maybe the greatest player to ever play, has spoken directly to you. But don't just qualify success with you making it to the NBA, right, because you'll be doing such a disservice to yourself. All these kids are so smart. And I tell you why, when your circumstances are surrounded with drug dealers making bad decisions, and a lot of them have to go through those choices every single day. Yeah. When we follow Quan home, you see that crew hanging outside his house. Yeah. How easy is that for him to go outside and like, let me make an extra $200 real quick by going to sell something or standing on the corner. When you make that choice not to be involved in that life, all of you are so smart. Don't think that you can't achieve something great. Yeah. You're already making those type of decisions on a day-to-day basis. We just need to show you how to do it at a different level.
I will say this, it was, there was even within that and seeing that challenge that he has, there was a great moment of like, around him in his community that they were like, we don't want to get Quan involved. He's got potential. Like, he had people that were in the game that were like identifying him. And it's like, that's nice. We need more of that looking out for him. He needs more of that support. He needs more people saying like.
But see, I have such a problem with that because I am tired of, you know, our community only looking out for athletes. That's BS, man. It's like, we need to look out for everybody.
Why didn't that person think they had potential too? Why does only Quan
Exactly.
have
Why is
potential?
Quan only want potential? So when I see another kid, like, no, you got the same potential that Quan does. It may not be on the basketball court, but it could be here in your head, in your mind. So like, we all need to hold ourselves to a higher standard, because when we start seeing that environment, like, my thing is, how are we all helping each other rise out of it? Now, I get that people are faced with different situations. I understand that. Everybody has a different situation in their life. But my thing is, how do we insert more people who have been able to accomplish things, just come down and say, no, yo, like, let's rise up together. Here's your current situation. Here's how I'll get out of it. And here's how I'm going to stay on top of you to make sure that you get out of it. Like, I see some of my friends, and I'm just to be real with you. One of my friends, Scott, he's Jewish. We talk about this all the time. Like, we see within their community, they're like, hey, come on, we're all rising up together. Like, we need to start doing that. Yeah. And I guess time we start having those conversations.
Let me ask you a question, man. You have the reason it's great to watch you do this, and the reason I think you're as successful as you are on this journey is because you have this amazing ability to relate, to find the experiences you've been through and find that connective tissue and that common ground. Is that a skill you always had? Is that something you've developed over time? Since you went through everything you went through back in 2003, have you always been able to touch people in the way that you appear to in this show and find that way in?
I didn't think I found out the secret until I wrote my book at 30 years old. It took me 2.5 years to write 250 pages. And it wasn't until I got to about my 7th or 8th edit where I sat down with my old agent, Evan Dick, who I have to commend him. I give him all the credit for it. And he was like, no, if you're going to tell the truth, tell the full truth. And don't worry about what people will say. People are going to judge you regardless, right? So no more of the social media life where you only put your best foot forward. Like, be real, be honest. And we sat through it, and we talked through so much stuff. And a lot of questions I still had that weren't answered. Right? And I still have questions that aren't answered today, but I'm constantly evolving. And I think by doing that and then putting my story out there, the amount of feedback I got I was like, oh, so my accident was a motorcycle accident, but everybody's had their own accident in some form or fashion. So how do he loses his dad? That's an accident. Quan gets arrested. That's a record for the rest of his life. That's an accident. How are you empowering yourself with your history? Instead of running away from it, how do you own it and use it to enhance where you are? And the more you share your vulnerabilities with people, the more people will bring you in and try to help you. And I think that's the key. Like, we're all in this together, man. It's funny. We all seem like we run individual races, but we're all trying to aspire to do the same thing. We're trying to be better.
Well, it's that vulnerability and that openness that reads as authenticity, which is something I think everybody is like latching onto and I think authenticity's always been popular. I think now more than ever, people are like thirsty for authentic people and real people. And you, even when you're hanging out with LeBron, you talk about, you're in the middle of this. You're like, this is the realest thing I ever done. And people are watching. They're like, this is the realest thing I've ever seen. It's like there's a crazy sort of through line there that it's really resonating, and it's really it's a hell of a thing, man.
And I recognize something, and it's for Coach K, who's one of the best coaches out there. I think sometimes people get frustrated because when you coach for 20 plus years, you have so many kids that run through your organization. And the challenging part is, people are like, well, when are we going to see season 2? I'm like, I don't know if I have the capacity for season 2. Like, I want to do that, but how do you not take this shit home with you?
Yeah.
How do I not take that stuff with these kids home and think about, where they're going to go to college? What's going on? Like, I got a DM randomly through my stuff. My wife was like, you always check your DMs. I'm like, well, I just had Dean's mom reach out to me like, well, now he's not thinking about playing basketball at Rutgers Newark. And I'm like, why? And I'm trying to reach out to him like, what's going on? Like, it never stops.
Can't, yeah.
So how do you do that over the course of 20 years for every kid? You try to, and then you still have your own life, right? So my thing is, as long as you're giving your effort and you're trying, like, that's my one thing I want everybody to take away from this thing. Like, when you see these kids, the last thing I'll say, when you see these kids and you talk to them, you will walk away saying, damn, I need to do so much more in my life. Yeah. I need to do more for my community, because that's our future. That's our future.
Yeah. No, that's a huge takeaway from watching the show. We're gonna go to audience. We got a couple of questions. I got 2 of them. All right, we're
Sorry
gonna
for going long.
No, it's all good. Hey,
I
man.
get lost in the matrix. You know, it happens.
This is the beauty of having you on the show, man. We got plenty of time to do exactly that. Look, before we go to the audience, I'm going to remind everybody. It's over 1 million. I don't need to remind a whole lot of you, but those who have not yet seen this show, YouTube original, Best Shot. It's there. It's dropping every Wednesday. You have to watch it. You have to follow along. It's amazing. So let's get to some of those questions. I got one. Where's the microphone? Right here, all the way in the back.
Hi.
Hello.
I was just wondering if you could talk about an obstacle in your life. You've had a very prolific career, and maybe just like how you overcame that obstacle to achieve a goal. Like it could be anything, really.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a major obstacle. I got lucky enough to be a second pick in the NBA draft in 2002. It's something that my mother and my father and I have dreamt about since I've been a little boy. Playing on the court against Kobe, Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, Jason Kidd, the biggest names in the game. Actually averaging around like 11 points, 6.5 assists, like finally figuring out that I was going to find my way as a professional athlete. Got into a horrific motorcycle accident after my rookie year. It took me 3.5 months to get out of the hospital, another year to learn how to walk, another year to learn how to run. I still walk with a limp because I have drop foot to this day. I will have to get a knee replacement by the time I'm 40. I'm 36, just about to turn 37. I've had 13 plus surgeries. This area of my body did not operate for over 2.5 years, which is a very humbling experience. So for me, that's a major obstacle. The only way I learned how to get through it is that I surrounded myself with people that helped me to higher standards than what I held myself to. I love business. Every great businesses have a board, and it's the board's job. If you ever meet a CEO before he goes into the room, his palms are clammy, he's stressed out because that board is going to grill him about where the company was, where the company currently is, and where the company is going. You are doing a disservice to yourself if you don't have a board in your own life. People who their job is to make sure that you're striving for something that they see in you that maybe you don't see in yourself. I cannot express to you enough the power of surrounding yourself with positivity. Everybody in this world wants to chop your legs off. When I say something on TV that people disagree with, like, oh, well, you should hit that utility pole a little bit harder. Obviously, you're still suffering from concuss-like symptoms. And I'm like, oh, okay, you think that little comment is going to deter me from accomplishing my goal? No, you're wrong. Because I'm surrounded with support, people that want me to be better. If you can do that, you watch how your life will exponentially change. You will start having confidence in yourself, and that same board will check you if things get a little bit out of control. Like, that's the power. And if I didn't have a board in my life, people that I literally asked for help, by asking for help, I got them to be invested in me, and I invested back in them. That's the most powerful thing you can do.
Thank you for that question. Thanks for that answer. We're going to do one more. How did you identify the people you needed on your board, or did they make themselves apparent to you?
I think people expose who they are, and I think sometimes you have to sit back. First off, I think the first thing is you have to stop. Like, I try to equate life to the analogy of the Matrix. Like, we're all living in the Matrix. Think about how distracting the Matrix is. You leave this studio, billboard, sign, horns, car, what's on my schedule? What do I have to do tomorrow? What's my kid doing? What's going on with work? Where's this trip going? You get lost in it real quick. So to take a second to sit there and stop and say, what do I actually want out of this whole experience? What do I want to achieve? And then after you think about that for a while, start to align yourself with people who have the same mission. And your board doesn't have to be one overall arching board. You can have different boards for different verticals. Like, I want to be a good husband. Maybe I should surround myself with people who are dedicated husbands. You know what I mean? Like, think about it, right? Like, I want to be a good dad. I'm going to surround myself with guys who are good fathers.
Yeah, some good dads.
Who do a good job of that. I want to be good in business. Okay. Like, I can't tell you how many companies I've gone and I've spoken at, and I say, all you have to do is ask. The power of asking. People, your ego is your worst enemy. It won't allow you to ask. And I'll say, all you have to do is ask, and there'll be a younger crowd, and nobody will come up to me and say, will you be on my board? Nobody will do it. And I'm like, that's interesting. So, you know, if you're telling people are saying you're open for it, obviously you can't be on everybody's board, right. But you need to start asking for help. Because I didn't do it on my own. Like, I don't hear some of the most successful people, depending upon what you deem as successful, do it on their own. Everybody's had help to get to where they are.
We one more? All right, we're going to do one more. But had we had another 20 minutes, I would have asked for your definition of successful. Let's go ahead. Let's do one more. We'll come back to that. Last question from the audience right here.
Hi. What is the best advice that you've ever received?
Wow, the best advice that I've ever received. That's challenging. I've received a lot of advice. I'll probably say I get it from my parents, and they're constant reminders of it. And my wife reminds me of it all the time. Sorry, I mumble when I get emotional. My wife reminds me of it all the time. Is that I spent so much time being angry at what was taken away from me in my past that I didn't spend time focusing on what my present was. And when people say to me, well, I was doing TV this morning on Good Day New York, and the host is like, well, you had an unfortunate situation. And I stopped her mid-question. I said, was it really unfortunate? Or was it the best gift that could have ever happened to me? So sometimes I think we all go through rides in life, and it all depends on how mentally you look at that ride. If you're one of these people that says, hey, woe is me, this happened, you can be forever chained to that misery. But if you allow that experience to empower you and you look at it as a gift, and then my wife would say, are you trying to be better? I mean, I know it's something that sounds corny and cheesy, but are you honestly making the effort to try to be better every day? Are you trying to be a better person? And I think a lot of people get lost in what this world provides, and they don't look at trying to be better individually. And when you're better individually, then all of a sudden you're trying to make other people around you better. And that's the kind of legacy I want to leave for my family. That's what I want to be known for.
Awesome.
Hope I answered that question properly.
Yeah, I see you going to applaud individually there, but that was a beautiful response.
No
and a beautiful
applaud.
question. Okay. No, there was a little bit hesitance. You remember, everybody's nervous. Nobody wants to step up and say, "I need help." Well, I need help applauding right now. That was amazing.
Thank you.
I was moved by that, man. Because one of the things that is so striking about you and the path you've taken is just the way, the power of, not positive thing, but the power of how you've taken that thing that, the rest of the world will either make a comment about, or it's an unfortunate thing. But it has set you on this beautiful path where if you didn't get in that accident, who knows if you would have influenced the lives of these boys, and you would have taken these boys that never heard that he was important before, and you were the person that told him he matters. And it's like, it sounds cheesy, but it's not, because here, this show is actually, and I'm going to tie it all back, that's how good I am at my job, but this show is a living, real world example, man, of of what that path has been for you and where that path has led you. And I congratulate you not only on this show, but on everything you got going on, man, the family that you're building with your wife. It's a beautiful thing. I hope you had a great time. You're super cool, dude. I'm so glad you were here, man, and came hang out with us.
People always ask me, hey, what's the goal? I'm like, I would love to become the Oprah of sports. I'm not saying it's attainable to have a house in Montecito. I understand that's Oprah. Auntie Oprah is doing it on a big-time level. But to be able to tell those compelling stories and create content that truly show you how amazing the power and the impact that sports can have. Yeah. And why I think it's important for kids to be, it teaches you so much more about yourself that you never thought about. Yeah. And you realize the best lesson of them all is that it's not, when you're involved in a team, it's about us. It's not about me. Yeah. And the better we do, the better off I'll be.
And I'll tell you, you hear that over and over again throughout the years. I heard that growing up in movies and all that stuff. This is the real deal. You see it in action. You see it happening, and it really is a moving and wonderful thing. So congratulations, guys. Best Shot. You can watch it right now. YouTube Originals is every Wednesday. They drop a new episode. I'm glued to it. You're going to get glued to it. Go ahead. Make some noise one more time for the great Jay Williams.
Oh,
thank you, sir.
You don't have to give yourself a pat on the back. You're very good at your job.
Thank you.